The way we watch has changed. Gone are the days when prime time was defined by specific hour on a specific day. If you remember back in the day, 8 o'clock used to be a thing. Nowadays, whatever you decide is prime time is prime time. Next slide, please. Now, the average time spent daily on video has basically been on a relentless upward trajectory. Next slide, please. We're on a track to cross over 4 hours per day per person. That's 4 hours of attention. But what exactly is growth, and where is this growth coming from? Now, is it studio blockbuster video content? Or is it traditional TV content that has basically moved online? Partially, yes, but overwhelmingly, the fuel for this revolution is coming from somewhere else entirely. Next slide. Now, in the past year, time spent on digital video content produced by traditional has basically grown by about 22%, which is good. But time spent on creator content has grown 39%. This is nearly double the growth rate. Creator content is not an alternative. It is the prime driver of attention and engagement. Now, in the digital ecosystem, digital is basically has redefined what you might call prime time. Now, prime time is whatever that consumer chooses. When they choose, how they choose to watch it, that is their prime time. Next slide, please. Next slide. Now, in Nigeria, YouTube basically reaches about 35 million people aged 18 and above. Now, that is a scale that essentially rivals many traditional media channels. But it comes with a critical ingredient that traditional media essentially struggles with, and that is trust. And this brings us to what I would call our second truth of the day. Creators are essentially the new architects of trust today. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide. So, for decades, our culture was led by musicians, athletes, and movie stars. Next slide, please. So, decades long trust connoisseurs were artists and musicians, and sometimes artists. This has changed, and very, very recently, YouTube creators, content creators basically have taken the front stage, taken the center stage in what you call trust. They are the original influencers, but the digital age has basically democratized that influence. If you take a look at previous generations, when they asked you about public figures and who they trust, both Gen Zs and millennials consistently placed YouTube creators at the top of their list. And why is this? YouTube creators basically spend years building a community. They invite you into their kitchens, their wardrobes, their studios. They are consistent. They are authentic. We have unprecedented scale and a new generation of trusted icons with these guys. The question really for every brand in this room is, how do you leverage this trust to drive measurable business growth? Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Now, this data is unambiguous. Appearing alongside or directly collaborating with creators will basically give you not just a feel-good content, but content that actually performs, content that actually delivers the business results that you're looking out for. I mean, take a look at numbers. 1.2 times higher reach and consideration, about 1.4 times higher loyalty, and 1.3 times higher advocacy. That's massive. But let's move on from here. If you take a look at it, next slide. The West African digital landscape in 2025 is not merely undergoing transformation, it is experiencing a fundamental restructuring of value. It's a restructuring of value, it's a restructuring of trust, and also attention. Now, the thesis here can no longer be, oh, it's digital adoption. We have moved past a digital adoption phase. That phase is long gone. What I think we are in a phase where you would call it digital resilience. Now, trust algorithm essentially tries to explore the convergence of three critical vectors, right? Critical vectors that are shaping the Nigerian and broader West African market. Next slide, please. These vectors I will call, one, the deep integration of generative AI into our creative supply chain. Next slide. Next slide, please. So AI is now part of our everyday lives. Two, legacy brand equity essentially is facing inflationary pressures. And so you find that people are no longer loyal. People are not loyal to famous brands who essentially will cut corners or choose the cheaper, more affordable brand. The third thing here is the enforcement of strict advertising standards by regulation. ARCON is a thing to really, really consider. We live in a world where consumer loyalty is essentially fragile and pricing sensitivity is now on an all-time high. Creators have ascended as the primary custodians of trust today. Yet, for brands, to monetize this trust effectively, brands must move beyond vanity metrics of 2020. Let's deconstruct this a little bit. Next slide, please. Now, data indicates or suggests that there is a radical shift in consumer psychology driven not by a temporary dip in confidence, but by a sustained period of, adjustment in response to the economy, especially economic pressures. Next slide. Today's consumer has basically been described as a mega hustler. What's a mega hustler? Now, this guy is an individual who essentially wears multiple professional hats. Today, he's, a software engineer in a corporate office, slaving at his desk. In the weekend, he's a photographer at an Owambe party kind of a thing. And say maybe in the evenings, he's streaming content on social media or basically trying to generate some revenue online. The point is, AI-driven solutions or AI-driven ad solutions that don't recognize this change in behavior or adopt this change in behavior in targeting will essentially miss the mark. And if you are trying to target people by demography or age and location, you essentially will be targeting very wrong. Next slide, please. So in essence, loyalty has more or less collapsed. 7 out of 10 consumers in Nigeria have switched brands within the last year, primarily because of cost. So don't feel too bad. Everybody's feeling the pinch. 70%, that's a huge number. Now, this erosion of loyalty represents a clear and present danger for, brand managers. Legacy dominance is no longer a shield against market share attrition. Next slide. Please reveal the entire slide. Now, there's likely a decoupling of ad spend from brand health. Awareness campaigns alone will not convert because consumers are intercepting that journey around the consideration phase. Next slide, please. What's also interesting is there's a demographic shift that further complicates this audience profile. Now you have creators who are really good at what they do, but they are faced with a major challenge as well. You have an audience of Nigerians who have jackpot, skilled workforce who are living, in diaspora, but they're also still very much connected to home and paying attention to what is going on. Creators are capturing or seeing that audience filter into their channels, but they're also seeing audiences locally watching their content. And so they're faced with a combination of audiences, Nigerians living in diaspora and Nigerians living locally here in Nigeria. And what do? They create content struggling to identify with these Nigerians in diaspora and the guys locally. But they have an incentive to pay attention to Nigerians in diaspora. Why? Because that cost per thousand, that cost for every 1,000 impressions that they receive is probably more valuable than the cost per 1,000 impressions they receive from local Nigerian consumers. Next slide. Now, next slide, please. Take a look at connectivity and compute power. The revolution of the West African creator economy is not happening by itself. Next slide, please. Thank you. It is supported by a massive capital incentive upgrade to the continent's digital infrastructure. Now, think of it as this. There is internet. Fast internet is essentially driven by what you call investment in bandwidth. Today, bandwidth is the reason why you have faster, better video streaming on your devices, on your TVs. Now, there are investments in subsea cables that's basically making it easier and faster to access video content. And this infrastructure is what is fueling YouTube's 50% watch time increase in the last 1 year. Now, without this digital backbone, in the shift from snackable content to watching long form content will essentially be relatively impossible to achieve. Next slide, please. Now, beyond connectivity, next slide, please. Beyond connectivity, we also consider compute sovereignty. Now, Google has partnered with Cassava Technologies, for instance, with the aim of ensuring that we have AI data centers available on the continent, on the Africa continent. Now, Cassava Technologies has secured 12,000 GPUs for the continent's AI factories, becoming NVIDIA's first cloud partner in Africa. Now, this is a critical development for the creator economy because it means that the access to high performance AI tools like Gemini, for instance, is not just a theoretical possibility. This is making Gemini access easier, faster, and even more reliable. For a Nigerian creator, this effectively demonstrates the means of high-end production, allowing a freelancer in, say, Yaba, for instance, to access the same generative AI capabilities as another creator sitting in LA, for instance. Next slide, please. So if you think about industrialization and diversification, the West African creator economy has basically evolved from a nascent, chaotic industry to a more robust economic engine. Some people say it's valued at about $15 billion, depending on who you ask. Now, this growth is essentially characterized by professionalization of talent, meaning your talent aren't just doing stuff for the sake of it, but they are also paying attention to the value, especially commercial value, of the things, of the content that they are putting out there. Next slide, please. Now, there's an increase in commercially viable content, especially when you think about the Nollywood evolution of YouTube, for instance. Now, that basically became a trend in 2025, where you had a lot of Nollywood content creators putting their content or moving their content onto the YouTube platform, and thereby not just generating revenue, but also generating a movement for themselves. I'm sure you remember examples like Achalugo and things like that. Now, Nollywood on YouTube is a primary driver for this 50% growth in watch time. The behavior has shifted from short form snacking to long form viewing, effectively replacing your traditional TV for a vast demography of Nigerians. Now, this shift is characterized by channel diversification. Successful actors and skit makers are no longer creating content that is just for a niche short form audience, but they are also creating content and basically affecting and shaping culture as we go. I have a case study to talk about. Next slide, please. If you remember this dude, next slide. Thank you. If you remember this dude, Tayo Aina, does it ring a bell? I'm sure. Now, Tayo Aina started as an Uber driver in 2017. He basically utilized YouTube tutorials to master filmmaking. By 2025, his content has evolved from simple vlogs to complex travel documentaries that actively reshape global narratives around Africa. Now, Tayo's trajectory from filmmaking with an iPhone to traveling with high-end equipment to countries like Ethiopia, Namibia, the US, that voice is a voice that a lot of brands want to align with. Now, this documentary style storytelling is gaining traction over highly scripted content. Why? It resonates with the authenticity demanded by the modern consumer. Next slide, please. We talk about artificial intelligence. Now, I would say artificial intelligence is sort of like the great equalizer. Basically levels the playing field for everybody to come on board. The most significant technology shift, especially in 2025 and maybe even in West Africa, is the democratization of production through AI. Now, Google and a number of other companies have aggressively positioned themselves as the enabler of this shift, providing tools that allow creators to essentially compete on a global stage despite resource constraints. Next slide. Now, if you go, next slide, please. Beyond editing, generative AI is transforming the ideation phase. Next slide, please. Thank you. A few weeks ago at Google, we basically hosted a few, you might call them Gen Z creators, cultural influencers for the Gen Z community, around the use of Gemini to sort of shape or streamline their creative workflows. Now, creators like Lai Wasabi, Feifei Talks, and the likes, basically use Gemini for scripting, research, brainstorming, and basically significantly reducing the time spent on routine tasks. Now, for brands, what this means is that you can partner with creators and deliver content at a much shorter time frame. AI basically has helped creators deliver faster and even more impactful content pieces. So essentially, we use AI not as an alternative, but as a collaborator, like a tool, essentially, helping us identify what is trending and basically helping us structure our content for maximum engagement. Next slide, please. Now, for the creator, the resource gap has also historically been a barrier. AI tools basically act as a virtual team. Now, Google's YouTube Create app, available in Nigeria, is a game changer. What that does is it basically brings sophisticated editing capabilities, things like audio cleanup or accessing royalty-free music directly to your mobile device. Basically makes it easy for you to adapt your ads to the YouTube platform. Next slide. Let's take a look at what's happening with respect to regulation and how they promise that safety net. As mentioned before, Nigeria used to be pretty chaotic when it came to content creation that was posted online. Archon to the rescue. Next slide, please. Archon basically has established a regime for strict enforcement that brands and creators ignore to their own detriment. Archon essentially mandates that literally, all advertising materials directed at the Nigerian market must be vetted and approved by its standards panel prior to publication. Now, this includes digital content and influencer posts that are promotional in nature. The regulator has basically adopted a zero tolerance policy for any type of misleading ad, particularly those promising unrealistic financial returns or health benefits. Probably VDM is in the mix too. Crucially, this jurisdiction applies even if the brand is a foreign brand or if the platform is a foreign platform that is hosted outside of Nigeria. If this content targets Nigerians, it is subject to the Nigerian law. That's the APCON rule. Now, this creates a significant compliance burden for global brands who are who normally would do a self-regulation as opposed to depend on external regulatory programs. Next slide. But Archon hasn't stopped there. Archon is also trying to regulate artificial intelligence. How do you regulate the artificial? Archon has stepped into the AI arena, and they have introduced specific regulations that prohibit the use of AI-generated visuals or motion designs in consumer-facing ads without explicit disclosure and truthfulness checks. Now, this is a direct response to the proliferation of deepfakes in the market, where AI-generated evidence or claims are difficult to verify. Now, a creator using AI to enhance maybe a product review, for example, if you're using AI to smoothen your skin, for a beauty tutorial, things like that. Now, that could inadvertently violate Archon's truthfulness standards. Brands must therefore ensure that their creator partners are Archon aware and transparent about their use of AI in content creation. Next slide, please. But that is not all. Next slide, please. Now, the regulatory risk is also compounded by the prevalence of fake engagement. Now, inflated metrics via maybe bot followers are not a rare thing. It happens. It's not exclusive to Nigerian creators. It happens globally. Now, for brand managers or brand custodians, now that risk is twofold. You are potentially paying for fake reach, and you're also facing Archon sanctions for non-compliant content that could also add up to reputational damage or even legal loss. Brand safety is not just about avoiding controversial content. It is about avoiding regulatory non-compliance as well. Next slide, please. So after all of this is said and done, what then do we do? Next slide. Based on the convergence of these factors, the following strategic pillars essentially define what you might call success in the West African marketplace, and I'll just take us through a few of them. Next slide, please. Commerce thrives when trust is decentralized, when trust is peer validated, when trust is also culturally embedded. Think about it. If you think about Building niche influence, you essentially begin to build trust. Creators essentially are the local account managers for their specific interest niches. Creators speak the language and hold the trust of their audience in a way that brands can never attain. What's the lesson for brands? Brands need to stop handing creators scripts. Instead, brands need to collaborate with the creators who essentially act as cultural translators and allow them to translate their brand, the brand message, to their audiences in the words and the dialect that they best understand. Second thing, enablement over extraction. Too often, brands view creators merely as an ad space. If you think about it, creators are not that ad space. If you ask if you ask your creator, how can I sell my product? You will not get the best out of them. But if you flip it a bit and you say, how can my brand help you create better content? And that's a different conversation that you can have, and even a more open conversation that you can have with the creator that essentially opens you to deliver or even benefit a lot more than what you are paying for. This could mean providing the creator with maybe budgets, upfront payments that helps the creator think even more critically about your brand and how they are going to place your brand in the content that they produce. Number 3, I recommend that brands also invest in long-term incubation. Now, if you think about it, if you shift from a one and done type of posting, you post and that is it, to something where you actually engage creators as you would engage a brand ambassador, your creators will appreciate this gesture, and in turn, they become your partners. They become your partners not just to you as a brand, but they also are particular about how well the business is growing. And so they become your loyal advocates, ensuring that the brand is able to even reach more mileage than they are even being paid for. I think the fourth one here will be to convert your creators' activity into collateral. Now, a lot of creators struggle to prove return on investments beyond those vanity metrics like the likes and things like that. But the lesson here is for brands to work with creators to establish deeper metrics for success like sales, retention, sentiment measures, and use that data to essentially unlock additional credits like bigger budgets, because the creator has been able to shift sentiment from negative, past neutral to positive, should count for something. It should count for more collaboration with the creator. Next slide, please. So if you think about it, next slide. To navigate the challenges of 2026 and what is coming ahead of us, rules of engagement essentially will need to change. And a few things that we also need to put into the back of our minds, essentially. Next slide, please. I'll call it the compliance clause. Every brand must ensure that their creator has Archon at the back of their minds. In fact, you must mandate that clause is written into contracts. Think about trust, but nano trust. Move budgets away from macro influencers to nano influencers, those guys that have 1,000 followers or 10,000 followers. The point is that if you do this, you actually will get a much higher conversion rate. If you've observed Temu ads, for instance, you have a lot of Temu ads showing up not just as Temu, but as seemingly unknown personalities. But these personalities already have a strong niche following. That's an example that you should consider following. Number 3, consider fintech as a bridge. Far too often, we've been looking at the likes of Paystack, the likes of MoneyPoint do their thing. But what we don't always realize is that we can actually begin to deliver strategic value by leveraging these fintech solutions in our content pieces. Think of it like this: your content becomes the showroom where you get people to register their intentions or get their attention, and then you use some of these fintech solutions as your revenue drivers. I think the fourth one here would be to use AI production in ethical fashion. Creators essentially need to think of AI solutions as tools for editing to reduce their costs. But you must disclose when you are using AI to augment or to make certain improvements that are not there, essentially to meet up with Archon's regulation. I think in closing, next slide. Next slide. In closing, I would say for creators in the room, the brands are your opportunity to move from passion to sustainable professional businesses. They are the sources that basically fund your biggest ideas and basically help you to be the new media moguls, the writers, the directors, and that starts today. If there's a brand in the room, creators are your key to moving from interruption to integration. They are your authentic access to point to loyal, engaging communities. They allow you to be the catalyst for the next stage of content growth. You're not just an advertiser, you are basically collaborating to shape culture. Thank you very much. That is my spiel.